This is Vanessa Lake, the Purple Couch Lady, and this is the question I received. I have a lot of anxiety around time, like having appointments and scheduling. Like if something has to happen at a certain time, even something that should feel good, like having friends come over, I get really anxious, especially when it gets close to the time of it happening. Even on my days off, I find myself rushing through lunch to quickly get to the next task. It all feels stressful. How do I make it stop? Well, first, it helps to understand what's happening in your brain so you know what's happening isn't random, but serving a function. Your brain is lazy. Okay, so really it's just trying to be efficient, which means using the least amount of energy possible when assessing a situation. If every situation is seen as new and needs to be evaluated, that takes time and energy before coming up with a plan of action or determining what category the situation even fits in. Without generalizations, it'd be like trying to make dinner but never being able to use the same recipe twice. It saves time if you can just repeat the same recipes you know without even having to look up actual directions. You just make it without thinking about it. Well, the brain does the same thing, reacts without really thinking about the situation in front of it. As an officer, most of your stressful responses come from the generalizations your brain makes. And most of these generalizations are from things that it sees as a threat to your survival, and it reacts with what it feels like is an appropriate response to such a threat, which makes sense at work, not so much when you're not there. So, when there's a similar situation outside of work, it creates the same threat response, including the adrenaline that comes with it, which results in the physical sensations you're experiencing. So, start by asking yourself, what are some of these generalizations you've made about time? Some of those might include you have to be at work at a specific time, do rounds at a specific time. If you're late, there's negative consequences like being yelled at, investigated, or even fired. Watching the clock matters. If you're on shift and someone is late to relieve you, you're stuck and can't leave. If you make someone else stuck, they could punish you later. Being punctual matters. Incidents happen at a specific time, and you need to document this for reports. If you mess up the time, it can be seen as falsifying documents, and you can get in trouble. Time matters. If someone is being assaulted, you need to respond quickly. Your sense of urgency could save their life. Your slowness could result in death. Urgency matters. However, you also have no control of your schedule or your time because you can be mandated to stay for another 8 hours. You will compensate for this in your personal life by seeking control that you don't have at work. And then you can feel triggered, threatened, angry, irritable if something or someone changes the schedule you thought you were in control of. There's so many intense, anxious, threatening emotions surrounding time in your schedule. It makes sense that you'd be acting this way when you're outside of work. So, in order to change this, you got to create those new experiences and give your brain new labels to use for when you're not at work. We want to separate that work folder and the home folder. So, in order to do this, you got to come up with different behaviors to change that. Do things like don't follow your work schedule on your days off. Even you shift it by 30 minutes. That way you can tell your brain you're not at work and you're not on work time. It's your time. Your time matters. Wake up 15, 30 minutes later. I know you're so tired from your mandates. You're probably already sleeping in an hour longer on your days off to try and catch up on sleep. But even so, your routine, the way you do things, don't keep it to that work schedule. Schedule fun things, not just obligations and appointments. You don't want to think that your time and scheduling are only for, life or death situations and, big, heavy emotions. Schedule the fun, or even the mundane. So schedule mowing the lawn for Thursday at 2:17 p.m. Be very specific. That way, it's telling the brain that specific time, like when an incident happens, you're not saying, oh, well, the fight started sometime around 3 o'clock. No, you're saying the fight started at 3:04 and lasted to 3:27. Like you're very specific with time. So when you can be specific with time, but for something that's actually fun, or even mundane, it's not just attached to work. So you can say, hey, I'm walking the dog at 8:42 a.m., taking the kids to the park Tuesday at 4:45 p.m. Well, I'm getting ready for bed and I'm going to read a book at 7:23 p.m. Get that specific time and attach it to something that's not just an incident report and not just something that's work related. Also, so you can stop watching the clock, set alarms on your phone. Set alarms for these weird, odd times, but you can still set the alarm. It allows you to be present with whatever you're doing in the moment without the distractions of watching a clock. If you know people are coming over later, you don't have to be distracted like, well, I'm trying to play with my kid, or I'm trying to work on this, project, or I'm trying to fix this, plumbing, and always watching the clock. Like, are they going to be here yet? Should I wrap it up? Do I have time? Do I have time? Always asking, do I have time? Give yourself a window of time, actually, instead of being so specific. Tell your friends to come over between like 4 and 5 p.m. and then just let them show up. You can equate this to be a good, positive, unexpected surprise. I know the unexpected is absolutely a threat to you. There's no control and it's chaos. And if I didn't plan this, then it must be something bad. But it can also be something positive. And so if you have some of those unexpected positives, your brain can start to see the difference. Yes, unexpected at work could very well be a threat, and you need that folder to survive. I'm not telling you to get rid of that. But in your personal life, to let go of some of the adrenaline that's attached to that, let those unexpected things be positive. Even for yourself, give yourself some leeway so that punctuality isn't so stressful. Tell your parents that you'll see them between 12 and 1. That way you have some flexibility that you're not, well, I said I'd be there at 12 and it's 11:58 and I'm not there yet. Give yourself some of that leeway so that you're not so stressed and putting pressure on yourself. Don't get stuck on the specifics. Get more generalized in your personal life. Please show up to work at the time you're supposed to be there. Don't just walk in later. People will not be happy with you. So your brain is also going to tell you, well, actually, I was almost going to say your brain's going to tell you what to do. That goes both directions. Yes, your brain does tell you what to do when you are not in control, but we are trying to give you control. So your brain will do what you tell it to. Yeah, it's a two-way street. So, for example, think of your favorite vacation. Where did you go? What were you doing? What were some of those experiences? Who were you with? And now think about what your upcoming time off or an upcoming vacation you have. Maybe you're taking a trip. Maybe you're going somewhere next year. Yes, I know you have to schedule everything a year in advance for you guys. But do you have plans? Are you staying home? Are you like, hey, I've got a 3-day weekend coming up and I'm just going to lounge at home? What are you thinking of doing? Just being able to think these things, you're showing your brain that you're in control of where your thoughts go when you're conscious and purposeful about it. So you can tell it what to think about your physical sensations. Change the story you tell yourself, the meaning you've given it about those physical sensations when you have these feelings around appointments or events. So if you're feeling sweaty or butterflies or knots in your stomach when friends are about to come over, don't label it anxiety. Call it excitement. Tell yourself, I'm excited my friends are coming over, because it's a very similar experience in the physical body. And your brain's going to listen to whatever you tell it. It's just that you've told it so many times, oh, this is anxiety. This is a bad thing. This is, a threat, because it often is at work. And that's totally understandable, but it doesn't need to be that way in your personal life. So if you're feeling tense and your heart is racing for, about to have a doctor's appointment, you can tell yourself that you're feeling curious and not anxious. You're curious if the doctor is wearing, the color blue, or if the lady at the front desk is wearing yellow. You're not curious if you'll get bad news. We're not going there. These physical sensations don't have to be labeled anxiety. And when you call them something else, you're allowing yourself the chance to feel them and experience them as something else. And the brain can let go of just its default anxiety. Also, you can change the meaning about the physical response by changing your physical actions. So like exercise. I know it sounds silly, but like just do some jumping jacks or some push-ups before you have to go somewhere or before somebody comes over. By doing something physical, you're getting your heart rate up, and then your brain realizes that your heart is racing, you're sweaty, you have tension because you just worked out, because you just did some physical exercise. Again, not because you have anxiety. It doesn't always need to be anxiety. Also, be careful of the stories you're telling yourself, like saying, I don't have enough time, because that's putting that rushed, anxious energy on yourself. Use more empowering phrases like, it'll take the time it takes. I'll get there when I get there. I'd rather be safe than on time. Let go of some of that rushed energy. The other piece is that the brain and the body like to be in sync. They like to be in balance. It's called homeostasis. Just means that if your body's feeling amped up, the brain's going to come up with reasons why it must be feeling that way. And it does this unconsciously and quickly, because especially if you're feeling some way that's similar to a threat, experience that you've had prior, it doesn't have time to assess. It just wants to protect you. Oh, react right now. Do what you got to do right now to keep yourself safe. Yell, scream, fight back, fight or flight, whatever. But if the body is feeling relaxed and calm, the brain will also come up with reasons why it's safe to feel that way. So if you want to calm down, then do some calming activities like taking a relaxing hot shower before company comes over or before you have to leave the house. Then you're physically feeling relaxed, slowed down, and the brain comes up with reasons that it feels that way. Certainly not because of anxiety, but because you are relaxed, because everything is going fine, or you had time to take a shower, you're not rushed, you got plenty of time. Another thing you can do is, cuddle with your pet. Whatever you cat, dog, whatever your pet is, give it a good cuddle, good rub, and give yourself a boost of oxytocin. It's the safety and security chemical because if you're feeling safe and secure, you're not feeling anxious. If you found this information helpful, please share it with others. And if you have your own questions about mental health, bringing work home, or if your loved one trying to understand what they're going through, just leave your questions in the comments below or send me an email. If you're looking for more resources, check out my website. You'll find free downloads, blog posts, information on the Therapy 90, a device that activates your calming nervous system, a national providers list of therapists who specialize in working with officers and first responders, and you can sign up for my monthly newsletter. Check out the links in the description.